Maneva na sema PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
Kwasi Adarkwa, a member of the socialist movement, has finally shamed or disgraced Ahiagba, NPP National Communication Officer, on live radio for his propaganda about Mahama's State of Nation address, and also applaud Mahama for assuring or giving them the hope that they voted for. Without much ado, I would like you to join me listening to what he said in today's. This station still remains PENDREAM TV, the only channel that brings you the best and latest updates in politics. If you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like, and also share to other members to watch as well. You can equally leave a comment at the comment section after watching, or send us a voice note on our WhatsApp number. It is 0277 128 777. Thank you.
I've heard conversations, especially from our brother Moses Fuamwedi, saying that we have actually lost some goodwill on account of the President Akufo-Addo not being able to sign that bill. If that is true, he benefited, the NDC benefited, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama benefited from that. But why would that conspicuously be missing in his State of the Nation address? That was confounding to me. So if you look at that, I say that he presented a half picture to us, and there's a responsibility on us to present the full picture. There were other issues. Galamsey is key factor. His Minister for Lands, Natural Resources is hard at work trying to, rein in. That's a key effort that he needs to have mentioned there yesterday. Why 15 people died in Obuasi related to Galamsey. We didn't hear anything about that, but he spent 64 or 65 pages of papers to write things and excluded that conveniently. We thought that that would have been something that he mentioned to let us know what police investigation is producing. If there is any update, we need to hear about that. But we didn't hear anything. And that's absence for me was very confounding. Matters to do with the public safety in the northern corridor, upper northeast and Upper West. That challenge on that frontier, I think, is something we needed to hear about. But those conspicuously were missing. And it just tells you that the president's modus operandi going into the State of Nation yesterday, on the 27th, was designed essentially just to present a picture that will advance his politics and his propaganda, to say that he inherited a poor economy, when in fact the economy inherited is better than what he left in 2016 and is taking over in 2025. That's my assessment of the economy and the state of the nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, you're doing your response on March 4th.
Yes, on Tuesday. Yes.
Okay, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. No, if you would like to, you have to go. So, if you just join as a matter of what talk shows, Alaji and Alaji, keep your comments coming. I'll read those comments shortly. But before I do that, which means that you have indicated that you will go next. So, Kwasi Adarkwa will share his views on the State of the Nation's address.
Yes, thank you very much, Senna. The question that I wanted to ask was a clarification to find out, in his estimation, what do you think the debt default? What was the effect on Ghana's economy? The literature I've read is that most countries that default in the next 5 years have a very high likelihood of defaulting again. So what do you think is the effect of the default?
Well, I think we'll wait and see. Our economy, if you compare to many of the economies that, during the period that went to IMF, we've had an exceptional path. Most of the projections that were tempered, I think we're exceeding those expectations. And so, whilst is scientific to say that the data suggests that the propensity for economy that is defaulted in the past will default again, I don't think that we can say that necessarily Ghana will fall in that situation. But of course, the issues that led to us having to get to that space are well documented, and the impact it would have, I think that we'll have to deal with it, because it was a situation I would contend by and large forced on us. It wasn't an orchestrated situation that we would recklessly run our economy aground and then deal with this. It was a circumstantial matters that brought about some of the difficulties that led us there. And the consequence of it, we have to deal with it as a nation. I think, I submit humbly, that we have done quite a good job bringing that economy to where it is. And I can say that that faith will not befall Ghana based on how we've pulled ourselves out. The challenge then would be who is managing the economy going forward. The mantle is on the NDC to ensure that the growth they have inherited, they build on. But if they fail to build on it, then maybe what you're saying becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think that if they do a good job, we'll continue to come out of it in a positive way.
Thank you. I mean, in the speak of Marx, they say, another default is a spectre hanging on our heads, because and what it has also done to us is that all sovereigns depend on debt, and that is why you yourself mentioned that the government is borrowing. The government doesn't have, there's no bond market in Ghana anymore. We destroyed it, and with a default, and because of that, the government has to borrow T-bills every week to be able to run its affairs, and that is the effect. And T-bills are not sustainable. We are crowding out the capitalist, you are crowding out the private sector. But I will also say that, I'll commend the president for fulfilling his constitutional mandate and delivering a very well thought through address. Basically, this government this president is a very measured, calm president. He seems very genuine in his disposition, and the change that we said we wanted, we got it. And but I will start by, first of all, mentioning that this week 2 events happened. I'll start with what happened yesterday, 28th February, commemoration of our heroes who laid down their lives so that we can fight against the colonial oppressors for independence. One thing we should understand is that colonialism was not benign. The British were not like these nice guys who wear coat and speak English and are so nice to us. They were very brutal. They killed our people who they had recruited to go and fight for them, who said, give us our pay. Their response was to kill them. The British are wicked. There are some people who will not hesitate to do to you something that will destroy your life and your country. So we must keep that in mind, because there are some refugees in the country who say, oh, but the British were the people who were leading us to independence, and they were going to build for us a good society, and if they had stayed, maybe it would have been a better country. No, if they had stayed, they would have shot you if you protested against bad economic conditions. And the other one is a day of shame on the 24th of February, which is a day of shame, as we socialists and economists in Ghana name it. It's a day of shame because that was a day that we overthrew the government of the CPP led by Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And on that day, we cut short a lot of good things that we were on. And we ushered in some very bad things. In fact, Kwame Nkrumah was approached by IMF. He rejected their conditions, and when the new military government came, they were the first people to sign to an IMF program. And since then, we are on our 17th. And we all have told ourselves what the IMF have done to us. So that day of shame, we must remember not to go back again. And within that same period, we heard that some people had gone to court to reverse the naming of our international airport for Kotoka. And the basis is that the NLC and then the succeeding PP government passed a decree to establish a trust using state money to celebrate a coup maker and rename national monuments in his honor. I think this is such an ironic, anachronistic situation that we need to address. And I believe that the president should take an executive decision to address this issue and rename the airport. Initially, the airport was called Accra International Airport. So we must revert back to it or have a debate on who is appropriate to be named after. There are so many other heroes, and I don't believe that somebody who overthrew a government deserves that. And also, the decision in the NPP versus Attorney General, where it was said that the Supreme Court ruled that the state should not use its funds to finance and honor coups. So coming back to the State of the Union, State of the Nation. Sorry, State of the Nation. Yes. I would say that, Ghanaians have shown that we are wise. We voted for change. And the president has given us what he came to meet. What I'll try to say is that I would say that there's a sense of optimism in the air, even though things are very difficult. But people feel that they are more able to express themselves. They are more able to, because let's be factual. The previous government made the environment very hostile to dissent, and they also took very drastic actions. I myself was a victim of one, where they were using the army to fight private wars over land and other things. But what we should also remember is that, and that's why some of us are very grateful that the president has committed to a constitutional amendment. And that is something that we need to support. And those of us who think differently how this nation should be constructed and governed must bring our views to bear, and it shouldn't only be left to lawyers. The Constitution is not a document only for lawyers, for all of us. In fact, it is our Bible. And I believe that all of us must get involved to bring our views to bear to change this Constitution, because this Constitution has very many defects, and one of which was the concentration of power in the hands of one person. The president says he wants to change the Constitution, and we need to democratize properly, have a mass democracy where power is distributed, not one person appointing so many people, having serious discretionary powers to make decisions that will affect a lot of people. And this is something that we need to force the president to commit to, and has already committed, and we thank him for it. And that was also captured in his State of Nation, and we really look forward to a new constitution. We also want to talk about the economy. The president properly laid out the issues. He didn't really go into details, but the president laid out the issues about the debt, the weak performance of the CD, inflation, and alarmingly the failure of state-owned enterprises. So if you look at all the key sectors of the economy, there are very many issues to be dealt with. And those issues that have to be dealt with have to be done systematically. I believe that the president has the best of minds, the best of ministers, and the best of advice in terms of economics. But we need to talk about some first principles when it comes to going forward, what we want to do. If you look at even the successes that my colleague here mentioned about the previous government, I would say the main thing about the last year was gold. Gold propped up this economy. Gold brought in 11.6 billion in foreign currency, contributing 57% of our export earning. And that is the basis for the external reserves that we are noticing. But we will come to it as a topic. But what is the cost of that gold production that we saw? The externalities, the criminal environmental consequences of the gold that we are talking about. We need to get to the bottom of that, and we will come to that topic. But the rest of the economy, agric, manufacturing, so manufacturing and services, most of the performance were not up to the level that we wanted to. So, Mr. President, you've done well to set out your vision, but I would surmise to say that the biggest challenge facing you in terms of economic management is unemployment. The unemployment situation is your biggest issue. And why do we have unemployment? I would say unemployment to the basic mind is because we don't produce. It is only production that brings employment. So we, from the socialist angle, we believe that you need to produce. And what is the kind of production that will give you the mass unemployment and sustain good jobs? That is manufacturing. I don't even want to talk about industry, but manufacturing, zero in on manufacturing. It is only manufacturing jobs that will give you sustainable high incomes. So, Mr. President, we know that you have your vision, but we are also surmising to you that we want you to look at manufacturing. And how do we bring about this manufacturing jobs? We believe in the intervention of the state. Mr. President, your vision for agriculture, your vision for industrial development, your vision for one 24-hour economy will be rested and anchored by strong manufacturing sector. If you go to any country where there are many jobs and there are high incomes, you see hundreds and hundreds of people every morning are at the shift of the change of the shift, entering factories and mass production enterprises. Mr. President, the capital that is required to set up industrial enterprises, that capital doesn't exist in the private sector. Maybe you may have a few foreign investors to come in, but they are not going to bring the mass jobs that will employ 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 1 million people who are going to earn in 5 years, on average every year, $5,000. That is what high income means. Now, if you have the situation where you say, oh, when you finish school, go and do entrepreneurship. Of course, how many entrepreneurship can be generated from somebody who learned aeronautical engineering? You need sustainable jobs through manufacturing. So, Mr. President, we are asking that you pay attention to manufacturing so that you invest in it using the state levers. Now, in 2017, when the previous government came, they said one district, one factory. Some of us thought, well, I mean, one district, one factory in itself, it doesn't sound right, but let's see what they can do. Then, when the former president launched it, he made a statement. He said he was not going to make the mistake that Kwame Nkrumah did by establishing state-owned companies. Well, at that time, I told friends of mine that he was wrong and he will be found out in a few years. Last year, the manufacturing sector, even under 1D1F, grew by 3.1%. In 2023, it was 0.9%. In 2022, it was 0.7%. So, the private sector under 1D1F, a targeted manufacturing policy, failed to deliver that. Do we know why? Even aside from that, this was in the place where the government had put in guarantees, made loans available, supported them, and even brought controversial tax holidays, which ended up in the previous parliament and it became an issue. The 1D1F, because the government said it was learning from a lesson, but misdiagnosed the problem, ended up having these results. And this result was because not a lot of manufacturing was done. The private sector on its own in this economy, with this kind of interest rates, microenvironment, the private sector, you need patient capital. And our collective wealth will be able to give us that kind of leverage to be able to invest in manufacturing that will produce the thousands of jobs. And then the second thing, Mr. President, is ownership. When COVID-19 happened, we all saw how every country shut off its system and took care of their own. You cannot have an economy that you don't own. And ownership is not just private. I mean collective ownership and national ownership. The issue about inefficiencies and those things is a secondary matter. It can easily be dealt with. And when we are discussing ECG privatization in the coming days, it's about management. And if the management, whether it's owned by private or public, if it's managed poorly, it will fail. But the lesson of COVID-19 showed us that now every country is looking at ownership. You can't just allow your economy to be owned by others, or you depend on others to give you the basic amenities that you want. So that is one thing that we want the president to take note of. We were also very happy to hear about the president's attempt to bring national cohesion. National cohesion in terms of his disposition in the as captured in the state of the nation. You know, we are disparate people who have been welded together, and we are happy that this president has emphasized the issue of national cohesion. Then we'll talk about long-term economic planning. Even though the president didn't mention that, but I know his attention is there. That is how come he has appointed Dr. Nimoy Thompson, who led the process to develop the 40-year development plan, which was jettisoned in 2017, even though it had been a very collaborative and process for us to have a long-term vision for our national development. Mr. President, we need to get back to long-term planning to be able to dream the future that we are looking for as a nation. And then corruption. In fact, I will start the corruption discussion. As the president mentioned, some people should be declared wanted and those things. I would say those are enforcement. And I would say corruption fight has three legs. You have the habit, the culture, then you have the institutions, and then you have the enforcement. That end, the enforcement end is when the habit and the culture and the institutions have failed. Then you have to show and punish people. Mr. President, the nature of our country is the nature of our country. Has a way it is set up to provide avenues for corruption. The nature, we are very informal, we are very very collegial. I mean, and then we want to give favors, but the architecture of politics is based on patronage, and patronage is a corruption enabler. So there's election. What do we have now? We have a situation where you can finance. We are told that you need a minimum of $100 million to win a presidential election. My brother, you participated in an election. You were close to the action. I'm sure you can tell us how much you spent. But if you need $100 million to win an election, and that money, we have a situation where there's no regulation.
I insinuated I should go to Mama and take my money or something.
Well, no, you were close to the action. You spend the money to campaign.
What is the business you're trying to?
But the point is that how can you allow people to spend money, that huge amount of money, without any regulation? Even in America, in fact, if you look at most American political cases, they are all centered on campaign finance issues. Even there, those people who believe in capitalism to the hilt, they see the need to control the role of money in our politics. That is the basis, the root, the architecture provides the root to the corruption. 100 million. That is a huge amount of money. That is about a chunk of our budget. So we need to think in the future how we control how money is used in politics. We can't allow ourselves where we are told that you need between 400,000 to 5 million to win parliamentary seats. I mean, how many entrepreneurs generate that kind of profit every year to have this kind of situation where we are? So that is architecture that we have built ourselves that promotes corruption. And because also our politics is, my brother said, oh, the day we finish the election is the day the next election begins. We can't do politics for 4 years, cycle after cycle after cycle. That is unsustainable. How do we get even chance to govern? And if you have that kind of system where politics is a full-time vocation, so when people say that, oh, the person has only done politics, so he doesn't have experience, I laugh. The architecture we built for ourselves means that from the first day of election, the last day of election to the last day of election, some people have to work for the electoral cycle. Some are accountants, some are data analysts, some are administrators. These are people, they are working. You saw how NDC people were saying, turn on your camera. The people who design those systems, they are tech-related people. They are working. You go to their offices, they have accountants. They have accountants.
Nobody had any camera.
They have people. But the point I want to make, people are working full-time in politics because their politics is 4-year cycle and it doesn't end. And when you come to power, these people who have worked for you, you now have to push them into state positions for them to take care of themselves. That is their profession. So this is the patronage that we have, the architecture that we have built for ourselves. And that is what is causing the corruption. And then when it comes to the institutions, we are saying we should separate the Attorney General from the people who prosecute. Well, I would say let's add another layer to it. Let's distribute the power to the ground so that we will have a special prosecutor in every district, in every region, and I'm even saying we should have 2 of them. One for criminal issues, one for economic and related issues, where they are elected by electoral college so that they are somehow a bit independent, so that they can prosecute people from all levels. So imagine that somebody commits corruption-related issues and the national prosecutor fails to prosecute. Maybe the regional one can take it up, or even the district one can take it up, depending on how the architecture is put together. So we need institutions that have distributed powers so that they can be able to fight this corruption. And when it comes to the punishment, in fact, I am not a fan of the American system, but what I like about them is you see how they arrest politicians, as they call it the pep walk. They parade you and they photograph you, and then like that whole performative aspect of enforcement strikes fear into the populace, so that you know that if you engage in corruption, you will be found out and the whole country will see who you are and you will be prosecuted. So Mr. President, you have started well with the oral. I can tell you that most Ghanaians are very interested in accountability, the oral, and they hope that it will not die a natural death occasioned by elite consensus, because we know that, I mean, in this kind of politics, people have very good friends in high places. Some are even family members. Some are colleagues. Some are even business partners. So behind the scenes, they will make a deal. And then we also need the judiciary. I think that our judiciary is not accountable. Our judiciary is very, I mean, we hold the executive is held accountable. The parliament is held accountable through votes. But the executive, the judiciary, how do we hold them accountable? I believe that to fight corruption properly, we need an accountable judiciary. I'm sure the legal minds and the lawyers can come out with a way for us to hold judiciary accountable. So all in all, the president gave a very interesting state of the nation. His ideas about agriculture, I'm very much in love with it, and his ideas about decentralization, which he hopes to be able to decentralize and make us vote. And I think that during the last presidency, President Akufo-Addo's time, there was going to be a referendum. The mood of the country says that partisanship is not something that we like, especially at the local level, because we know how it works. That is how come when it got to the point where people were going to vote against, the president withdrew from it. I think we have to be sincere. Ghanaians like the MMDCs to be elected, but the partisan control of those leaders, I think most Ghanaians do not want that. So, Mr. President, if we are going to reform that area, we want to also say that, please, Ghanaians, do what Ghanaians want. Let it continue to be done partisan, and they will be able to serve the society that they live in. So I will say that all in all, but one of my few disappointments was, which my senior comrade Pratt has mentioned, our foreign policy. And our foreign policy in relation to some key issues. One of them is the fact that we have the principle where we are friends to all, enemies to none, right? But we also have, and I remember when Honorable Kujeto appeared before the vetting committee, he mentioned it, and he grounded that this country's foreign policy is based on Nkrumah's ideas. And one of the things is that even if you are friends with somebody who is doing something bad, you must be bold to say it. There are principles that we must abide by. So, for instance, recently, before the last president left office, he signed a declaration that we have revoked our diplomatic recognition of the Sahrawi Republic, which is under colonial occupation of Morocco. I think, Mr. President, you are somebody from the left, and we hope that justice will prevail and you will be able to address some of the issues. And we also hope that Ghana will take its leadership position in the sub-region. In fact, one of the saddest moments that I had as a Ghanaian was when West African leaders converged in Ghana here to plan to invade Niger. Why? Because Niger, through their own internal processes, had decided to put a military person in charge. And France and the European Union were not in favor. And our reaction as a nation was to invade another African country on behalf of the West. Because if we invade, what really are we going to get out of it if it's not for somebody's bidding? And this is leading to the collapse of ECOWAS. In fact, if you have traveled around West Africa and other places, you will know that you know the value of ECOWAS. Even that free movement alone and the trade between us, we are destroying ECOWAS, and I believe that the president has taken immediate steps to try and bridge that gap. And that is a very wonderful thing that we commend the president on. He has already appointed an envoy who is working very hard at it. So all in all, the president has started on a good note. The conditions are very difficult. There are a lot of debt. There's a lot of difficulties. But everything depends on how he sets the motion towards national reconstruction. I believe national reconstruction, because it's not just about a few touch and go here, but change the architecture of this country. He has the benefit of not subjecting himself to another election. Okay. So he is a president with a mission and a vision. That vision should be a total transformation of this country, maybe at least the beginning of that transformation, so that Ghana can take its position back where it belongs.
Thank you. Kwasi Adarkwa is a member of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, sharing his views on the State of the Nation address. Now, let me say a big thank you to Kiss FM 89.7 in Takra, the Shine FM Akachi, they are on 96.9, Hills FM in Adarkwa on 91.7, Nyawasi Radio Ketekrachi, you can get them on the 89.7 FM dial, Sela Radio Dabala on 97.1, Diamond FM Tamale on 93.7, Bell Radio Yendi 106.5, Radio Down Saboba 95.7, Benya FM Elmina on 105.7, Global FM in Ho is on 105.1, True FM in our days on 92.5, Zeps FM 95.9 in Zebila, Lamaya FM 89.1 in Tripoli, Boem 88.7 FM in Jessica, and Lukusi 96.1 in Virgo Lukwati. There's Stein FM 90.9, Sekpala FM 104.3, Akpini Radio is in Pando, Deniba Radio 90.9 FM, and OT Radio Dambai. We're currently on all those channels. It's a matter of what talk shows Alaji, and I'll let Alaji.
This is how far we have come today, and I'm sure everybody is really impressed with Mohammed's State of the Nation address, and what we are expecting is what he delivered. No one should be allowed to be deceived with these propagandas of the NPP. Thank you for staying tuned. This is how far we have come as well, and thank you for the good work you are doing for us on the channel. God bless you all.
PENDREAM TV now, so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.